The mystery. Presentation of the case. When Sarah Elizabeth Thompson left the guest house on that sunny morning of March 15, 2000, in Chapada dos Veadeiros, Goiás, no one imagined it would be the last time anyone would see her. The sun rose golden over the endless savanna, painting the ancient rock formations of the region in shades of orange, making it one of the most sought-after tourist destinations in the world. The fresh morning air carried the intense scent of the Cerrado flowers, and the melodious song of the bentebis echoed between the ancient rocks, creating a natural symphony that had been enchanting visitors since the first light of day. Sarah, a 27-year-old British archaeologist, had arrived in Brazil 3 weeks earlier on a carefully planned trip that combined academic work with personal adventure. Her wavy blonde hair immediately drew attention among the locals, as did her still hesitant Portuguese, flavored with a distinctive British accent that elicited kind, patient smiles from the residents of Alto Paraíso de Goiás. She had woken up early that day, as she had become accustomed to during her Brazilian stay, wearing her light white cotton blouse, faded jeans from frequent use, and the sturdy hiking boots that had taken her on challenging trails across 3 continents during her academic career. Got the guest house where Sarah had been staying for exactly 21 days was strategically located on the main street of Alto Paraíso, a small town that, in the early 2000s, still maintained its peaceful, welcoming village atmosphere, despite the increasing flow of national and international tourists eager to visit the crystal-clear waterfalls and unique rock formations of the region. The town had managed to retain its charm. The guest house owner, Maria Helena Bajovic, a lively 60-year-old woman who had arrived in Chapada in the 1980s from Brasilia, knew the land like few others, understanding every stone, every trail, and every secret of that magical place. She remembered that fateful morning with perfect clarity, as she had developed the habit of carefully observing all her guests, especially those like Sarah, who showed a genuine interest in the local culture and history. Sarah had breakfast at the small rustic restaurant of the guest house, apparently enjoying the traditional pio de acacar, sugar bread, with homemade dulce de leche prepared by Maria Helena herself, and drinking the strong, aromatic coffee she had learned to deeply appreciate during her time in Brazil. She talked animatedly about her plans for the day, particularly excited about a new area she intended to explore, a region she had pinpointed on her detailed maps and believed might hold significant archaeological evidence. By around 7 a.m., when the temperature was still a pleasant 22 degrees Celsius, and the morning dew sparkled on the leaves of the Cerrado vegetation, Sarah bid farewell to Maria Helena, informing her that she would take a hike to the famous Cachoeira do Segredo, one of the region's most spectacular waterfalls, located approximately 12 kilometers from the center of the small town. It was a trail she had safely walked on 2 previous occasions during her stay, always returning punctually before noon for lunch at the guest house, and to share her discoveries with other guests and staff. She carried her small dark green backpack, where she meticulously organized her aluminum water bottle, some dried and fresh fruits for snacks during the hike, high-factor sunscreen essential for protection under the intense Cerrado sun, and her precious Canon camera, which she never left behind on her expeditions. The weather on March 15th was absolutely perfect for outdoor activities and long walks. The temperature was expected to reach 30 degrees Celsius during the afternoon, but the constant gentle breeze made the experience even more enjoyable and comfortable. There were no signs of rain on the horizon, and the weather conditions seemed ideal for an archaeological exploration. Sarah had specifically mentioned to Maria Helena that she intended to photograph and document some specific rock formations she had carefully identified during her previous visits, as her scientific intuition and professional experience led her to believe these formations could hold substantial archaeological relevance for her ongoing research on pre-Columbian peoples of South America. The morning hours passed calmly, with no one at the guest house or in the town worried about Sarah's absence. She had clearly established a pattern of behavior by leaving early for her explorations and returning religiously for lunch. So when noon arrived and she had not appeared in the guest house restaurant, Maria Helena initially thought that perhaps the young archaeologist had decided to extend her hike to make the most of the favorable weather, or had found something particularly interesting that deserved more detailed study. However, when 3 p.m. arrived and Sarah still had not returned or given any sign of life, a strange and unsettling feeling began to take hold of the experienced guesthouse owner. By around 5 p.m., when the golden sun began to set majestically on the endless horizon of the Cerrado, painting the sky with the orange and red hues characteristic of the region, Maria Helena made the responsible decision to seek help from the local authorities. She knew the numerous dangers that Chapada could pose to visitors, especially those less familiar with the peculiarities of the terrain. In addition to the winding trails that could easily confuse inexperienced visitors, there was also the constant risk of accidents with unstable rock formations, encounters with native wild animals, and the ever-present concern of getting lost. As darkness quickly descended, as was typical of the Cerrado, the temperature in the wild dropped drastically after sunset, and spending an entire night outdoors could pose serious health risks, even for someone as experienced and well-prepared as Sarah appeared to be. The official discovery of Sarah Thompson's disappearance quickly set the tight-knit community of Alto Paraíso into motion. In a town where nearly everyone knew each other by name, and tourists were always welcomed as temporary members of the local family, the news of the young archaeologist's disappearance quickly became the focus of collective concern. The unexplained disappearance of a cherished and respected guest, the inexplicable disappearance of a beloved and respected guest, was something that deeply affected the hearts and consciences of all the residents. The news spread quickly, from mouth to mouth, through the cobbled streets of the town, and within a few hours, a substantial group of local volunteers spontaneously formed to begin the first search efforts that very same night, armed with powerful flashlights, invaluable knowledge of the local trails, and unwavering determination to find the young Englishwoman. The mystery of Sarah Thompson's disappearance was just beginning to unfold, and in the coming days and weeks, it would reveal itself to be far more complex, dangerous, and surprising than anyone in that peaceful community could have ever imagined. In their darkest nightmares, the suspects, people involved Sarah Elizabeth Thompson, was not simply another ordinary tourist passing through Chapada dos Veadeiros in search of adventure and exotic landscapes. Born in 1972 in the historic university city of Cambridge, England, to a family of respected academics, she had graduated with distinction in archaeology from the prestigious University of Oxford, one of the most renowned institutions in the world in her field of expertise. She worked as a highly qualified independent researcher, having developed an internationally recognized specialization in pre-Columbian South American civilizations, a subject that had fascinated her since her early undergraduate years. Her parents, retired university professors James and Margaret Thompson, always described Sarah as an extraordinarily determined young woman, naturally adventurous, and extremely responsible in all her activities, traits that had set her apart from her peers. Since childhood, she had harbored a burning dream since her youth to uncover archaeological mysteries from humanity's distant past, and had dedicated nearly her entire academic and professional life to pursuing this ambitious goal. During her 3-week stay in Brazil, Sarah had become a well-known, respected, and genuinely beloved figure in the small, warm community of Alto Paraíso. Her authentic and deep interest in Brazilian local culture, her admirable willingness to learn Portuguese despite struggling with its complex grammar, and her naturally kind and respectful nature had earned her the affection of not only the dedicated staff at the guest house where she stayed, but also local shopkeepers, experienced tour guides, fellow international travelers, and practically everyone she crossed paths with during those memorable weeks. Sarah kept a detailed academic journal of all her archaeological discoveries and scientific observations, always meticulously noting geographic coordinates and making elaborate technical sketches of rock formations that her professional experience deemed potentially interesting for future research. Maria Helena Bajovic, the established owner of the guest house, quickly became one of the main and most trusted sources of information about Sarah's final days and activities before her disappearance. At 60 years old, Maria Helena had arrived in Chapada in the promising 1980s, leaving behind a successful career in Brasilia after being irresistibly drawn to the special and unique energy that emanated from this mystical place. She had known Sarah since the first day she arrived at the guest house and had quickly developed a genuinely maternal affection for the young British archaeologist, treating her almost like an adopted daughter during her extended stay. Maria Helena recalled with crystal clear clarity the numerous intimate and revealing conversations they had during their morning coffees. These special moments where Sarah generously shared her latest archaeological discoveries, her detailed plans for each day of exploration, and her academic theories about the presence of ancient civilizations in the Chapada region. According to Maria Helena's precise memories, Sarah had repeatedly mentioned being particularly interested and intrigued by a specific and seemingly unique rock formation near the famous Chapada do Segredo, where her scientific intuition led her to believe she had found preliminary but promising evidence of very ancient human occupation. The young archaeologist had extensively and systematically photographed the mysterious area during her previous visits, always returning with increasing enthusiasm and speaking excitedly about the possibility of returning in the future with more sophisticated and specialized equipment to take precise and potentially groundbreaking archaeological measurements. Maria Helena, with her sharp sensitivity honed by decades of experience with guests, had noticed that Sarah seemed increasingly anxious and agitated during the last days of her stay, as though on the verge of making a truly important academic discovery that could transform her professional career. Carlos Eduardo Petkovic, more affectionately known to everyone in the region as Carlinhos, was indisputably the most experienced, respected, and knowledgeable tour guide in Chapada dos Veadeiros. At 42 years old, he had been born and raised organically in Alto Paraíso, absorbing from childhood an encyclopedic knowledge of every winding trail, every hidden waterfall, every unique rock formation, and every natural secret the region carefully guarded. Carlinhos had offered his professional services to Sarah during her first week of stay, presenting impressive credentials and excellent references. But she had politely declined his offer, explaining that she preferred to maintain her independence and explore the natural wonders of the region on her own. During Sarah's 3 weeks in the town, Carlinhos encountered her several times during her solitary walks along well-known trails and always greeted her cordially, offering useful tips on safety and points of archaeological interest that could fascinate a researcher of her caliber. Carlinhos had a particularly vivid memory of seeing Sarah exactly 3 days before her mysterious disappearance when he found her near the traditional entrance to the trail leading to the majestic Chapada do Segredo. The mysterious disappearance of Sarah Thompson. The investigation begins in that particular encounter. She seemed to be intently studying a detailed topographic map and writing important information in her ever-present field notebook. When Carlinhos naturally approached to offer his expert help, as was his professional custom with all tourists, Sarah appeared to show unusual nervousness and quickly put away all her research materials, as if she were protecting confidential information. She briefly explained that she was just verifying the geographic coordinates of a specific location she wanted to revisit the following day, but her slightly evasive behavior caught the experienced attention of Carlinhos, since Sarah had always been exceptionally open, communicative, and eager to share her discoveries with contagious enthusiasm. Roberto Merkovich, a professional wildlife and nature photographer, had been based in the region for exactly 2 weeks, working on an ambitious photographic project to meticulously document the unique flora and fauna of the Cerrado for an international nature magazine. Staying strategically in a competing guest house on the other side of the town, he had met Sarah casually in a chance encounter at the local restaurant, the most popular one among both tourists and locals. Roberto, a 35-year-old single man, accustomed to long solo work seasons in wild natural environments, had made some subtle romantic approaches to the attractive English archaeologist, but she had invariably been polite, yet consistently distant to his advances. Roberto clearly remembered a specific and revealing conversation they had exactly 2 days before Sarah's fateful disappearance. During that more significant casual conversation, Sarah had mentioned with barely contained enthusiasm that she was very close to an archaeological discovery that could potentially revolutionize and completely transform her academic career. She spoke with impressive technical knowledge about specific rock formations that contained possible ancient inscriptions from lost civilizations and demonstrated having extremely precise geographic coordinates for locations she considered archaeologically promising. Roberto had gallantly offered his services to accompany her on future explorations, arguing that he also needed to photograph rock formations for his professional project. But Sarah diplomatically declined his offer, insisting that she preferred to maintain her independence and work alone on her delicate research. Clues, evidence, and first indicators, the first tangible clues regarding the mysterious disappearance of Sarah Thompson began to emerge during the first intense night of searches organized by the local community. The dedicated group of volunteers, led by the invaluable experience of Carlinhos, was able to track and clearly identify the exact trail that Sarah had meticulously followed up to approximately 8 kilometers from the town, following a path leading toward the region's more remote rock formations. Her distinctive footprints were clearly visible and perfectly identifiable on the ground, still damp from the persistent morning dew, initially following the traditional and well-known path toward the majestic Cachorra do Segredo. The distinctive marks of her English hiking boots were easily recognizable due to the unique tread pattern, which greatly facilitated the meticulous tracking work conducted by the experienced volunteers. However, approximately 2 kilometers before reaching the waterfall itself, Sarah's clear footprints inexplicably veered off the traditional and widely used path, following a much smaller, less known, and significantly less traveled secondary trail, leading toward the higher, more isolated, and potentially dangerous rock formations of the region. This unexpected and seemingly deliberate detour immediately intrigued all the local experienced searchers, as that specific area was traditionally considered dangerous and unsuitable for inexperienced or unaccompanied hikers, characterized by extremely uneven terrain, unstable rock formations, and several smaller waterfalls that could pose substantial risks even to well-prepared and experienced explorers. Sarah's decision to abandon the safe path and follow a more challenging route immediately raised concerning questions about her true intentions and motivations. The next morning, at the start of the official search efforts, when the first professional reinforcements from the civil police of Goiás and the state fire department arrived, the first truly significant physical evidence was discovered around 10 am. Sarah's characteristic green backpack was carefully placed on a flat, well-visible rock, located approximately 3 kilometers from the point where her footprints had veered off the main trail. What caught the immediate attention of all investigators was the almost unreal state of the backpack. It was surprisingly clean, completely dry and meticulously organized, as though it had been deliberately and carefully placed in that specific location by human hands. Inside the discovered backpack, investigators systematically found all the items that Sarah religiously carried on her daily expeditions. Her aluminum water bottle, still containing about half of its original content, several dried fruits carefully packed, high-factor sunscreen, a small but complete first aid kit, and all of her important personal documents, including her British passport and identification documents. Surprisingly, her leather wallet was completely intact, containing all her Brazilian cash, valid international credit cards, and important British documents. This discovery immediately and definitively ruled out the possibility of a robbery or theft, something that, while extremely rare in the peaceful Chapada region, could not entirely be dismissed as an investigative possibility. The mysterious disappearance of Sarah Thompson. Clues begin to surface. Most notable and significant absence was precisely her precious Canon camera, a piece of equipment that Sarah literally never left behind on any of her archaeological expeditions. Also conspicuously missing were her detailed archaeological field notebook and some specialized measuring equipment that Maria Helena knew for certain she always carried for her field research. This specific and seemingly intentional selection of missing items immediately raised well-founded suspicions among the investigators that the disappearance could be intrinsically linked to Sarah's specialized archaeological work and the discoveries she had claimed to be making. A particularly intriguing and potentially revealing discovery was carefully folded in the side pocket of the backpack, a small piece of quality paper containing precise geographic coordinates, clearly handwritten in a script that was later confirmed to be unequivocally Sarah's. The mathematical coordinates specifically pointed to an even more remote and isolated area of rock formations, characteristic of the region, located about 5 kilometers away from the exact spot where the backpack had been strategically found. This mysterious area was known to the older local residents as Pedro do Segredo, Secret Stone, a truly isolated rock formation with extremely difficult access, rarely visited due to the substantial challenges and inherent dangers of the terrain. The clues were accumulating systematically, but the central mystery continued to deepen. If you're trying to solve this case with me, leave your theory in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. The investigation process, the official investigation into the baffling disappearance of Sarah Thompson, was meticulously coordinated by Delegado Antonio Carlos Rajulovic of the Civil Police of Goiás, a highly experienced and respected 45-year-old professional who had competently handled several complex cases of missing tourists in the challenging Chapada region throughout his distinguished police career. Delegado Rajulovic possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of the unique peculiarities of these specific cases, the vast expanse of virtually unexplored wilderness, the numerous natural dangers always present in the region, and the critical need to coordinate efforts efficiently between multiple government institutions and rescue organizations. The first strategic line of investigation strictly followed the standard protocols established for disappearances in wild natural areas. Specialized teams from the Goiás Fire Department immediately began systematic and extensive searches, utilizing all available techniques and technologies in the year 2000. Military helicopters for extensive aerial reconnaissance, highly trained ground teams accompanied by search and rescue dogs, and professional divers to carefully search deep waterfalls and natural water wells that could pose fatal risks. GPS tracking technology was still in its early stages of development for widespread civil use, which significantly limited the technological options available for investigators to pinpoint Sarah's exact location. The initial search perimeter covered an impressive area of approximately 50 square kilometers, strategically focusing on the region located between Alto Paraíso and the majestic Cachorro de Segredo. The search area gradually and systematically expanded to include the more remote and difficult-to-access rock formations. The dedicated teams worked tirelessly in strict 12-hour shifts, making the most of the precious daylight hours. During the dangerous nighttime hours, the search operations were necessarily limited to already known and considered safe areas for the rescuers and volunteers involved. One of the first, truly significant discoveries of the official investigation occurred 5 days after Sarah's initial disappearance, when a specialized firefighting team found convincing physical evidence that someone had camped recently near the mysterious rock formation known regionally as Pedra do Segredo. There were undeniable signs of a small campfire that had been carefully and deliberately extinguished and covered with earth and stones, organic food remains that appeared to be dried fruit, notably similar to those found in Sarah's abandoned backpack, and distinctive marks in the soil, suggesting that someone had slept in that spot for at least one night. The preliminary forensic analysis of the discovered campfire remnants, conducted with scientific precision by the highly skilled experts from the Goya's technical police, revealed that the fire had been lit approximately 3 to 4 days before its discovery, which would place its creation chronologically very close to the period of Sarah's mysterious disappearance. The organic food remains were carefully collected and preserved for detailed laboratory analysis, but the forensic technology available at the time substantially limited this specific information that could be scientifically extracted from these ambiguous traces. Parallel to the official investigation conducted by Brazilian authorities, Sarah's desperate family quickly mobilized considerable financial resources to dramatically intensify the search operations. The disappearance of Sarah Thompson. The truth revealed Sarah's dedicated parents, retired university professors James and Margaret Thompson, arrived in Brazil a week after the traumatic disappearance, bringing with them a highly qualified private detective hired in London, along with significantly more sophisticated and modern search equipment than the local resources available. The emotional presence of the British family inevitably attracted substantial international media attention to the case, adding political and diplomatic pressure on the Brazilian authorities responsible for the investigation. The specialized private detective, Michael Harrison, a retired investigator from Scotland Yard with vast international experience in complex missing person cases, immediately began his independent line of investigation, specifically and strategically focusing on Sarah's archaeological activities during her stay in Brazil. Harrison quickly identified, through his professional experience, that Sarah might have been conducting archaeological research without the proper legal permits required by Brazilian legislation. This discovery could have serious legal implications, both for her and any archaeological finds she had made. Harrison's meticulous investigation revealed that Sarah had been in regular and sustained communication with private collectors of archaeological artifacts during the months leading up to her trip to Brazil. Although there was no direct or conclusive evidence of illegal activities, the specific pattern and frequency of the documented communications suggested that Sarah might have been operating under significant external pressure to produce substantial and commercially valuable archaeological discoveries quickly. The discovery that would reveal the shocking truth. The discovery that would finally reveal the shocking truth about Sarah Thompson's disappearance came completely unexpectedly and dramatically exactly 10 years later. In March 2010, a group of speleologists from the University of Brasilia was conducting a systematic and scientific mapping of caves in the region when they made a discovery that would shock not only the local investigators, but the entire international archaeological community. The speleologists, led by renowned researcher Dr. Paulo Henrique Nicolet, were methodically exploring a complex cave system recently discovered about 15 kilometers from Alto Paraíso, an area that had not been included in the original searches for Sarah. Due to its extreme difficulty of access and inherent dangers, the cave entrance was completely concealed by dense vegetation, and was only visible from a very specific angle, convincingly explaining why it had remained unknown for so long. Inside this mysterious cave, approximately 200 meters from the main entrance, the speleologists discovered a small side chamber that had clearly been used as a temporary shelter by humans. There were unmistakable signs of recent human occupation. Remnants of professional camping equipment, basic survival tools, and most dramatically, human skeletons partially preserved by the dry, controlled environment of the cave. The identification of the remains was significantly facilitated by personal items exceptionally well preserved in the cave's climate-controlled environment. Among the objects found was Sarah's distinctive Canon camera, surprisingly still functional after 10 years of abandonment, containing hundreds of digital photographs that would reveal the entire truth about the final days of the English archaeologist. Photographs on the camera told an extraordinary and disturbing story. The images meticulously documented Sarah's journey from the deviation of the main trail to the discovery of this hidden cave. Sarah had documented her exploration, including rock formations with seemingly ancient inscriptions, partially buried ceramic artifacts, and structures suggesting significant prehistoric human occupation. More shockingly, it was discovered that Sarah had not been alone in the cave. The remains of a second individual were found near hers, along with professional excavation equipment and documents that revealed an illegal operation trafficking archaeological artifacts. The second skeleton was later identified as Fernando Kovashov, a known antiquities trafficker wanted by the federal police. Forensic analysis revealed that Sarah had inadvertently discovered an illegal excavation operation. The photographs showed not only legitimate archaeological sites, but evidence of systematic clandestine excavations. Fernando and his associates had been looting archaeological sites in the region, selling valuable artifacts to international collectors. Sarah's last journal entries revealed that she had been forced to accompany the traffickers to the cave after photographing their illegal activities. The physical evidence suggested a fatal confrontation between Sarah and her captors. Analysis of the bones revealed injuries consistent with the use of excavation tools as improvised weapons. The reconstruction of the final events indicated that Sarah had managed to defend herself during the confrontation, fatally wounding Fernando, but also being mortally wounded in the process. Both died in the cave, which was later sealed by a natural rockslide. Epilogue. Final reflection. The resolution of the case brought both relief and sorrow to everyone involved. Sarah's parents were finally able to give their daughter a dignified burial, finding solace in knowing that she had died defending Brazil's archaeological heritage. The case led to significant changes in security protocols for foreign researchers in Brazil. The discovery of the trafficking network resulted in one of the largest operations by the federal police against cultural heritage crimes. The archaeological discoveries documented by Sarah were later studied by official teams, resulting in the identification of new important sites. One site was named the Sarah Thompson Archaeological Site. In her honor, the community of Alto Paraíso was deeply impacted. Donna Maria Helena found peace in knowing that Sarah was a victim of circumstances beyond anyone's control. The inn maintains a memorial to Sarah, reminding everyone of the importance of security and cooperation with local authorities. The case highlighted the importance of investigative persistence and serves as an inspiration for families of other missing persons. Sarah's story remains a testament to the dedication of researchers who risk their lives to expand human knowledge, also serving as a warning about the dangers surrounding Brazil's cultural heritage. And so, another mystery is solved. If you figured out the truth before the reveal, let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this case, click like, tell us where you're listening from, and subscribe to the channel, activating the bell. I'll see you in the next mystery on our channel.